Alright everybody, welcome back to a new tier list video. Now I know it's taken me almost 80 days. Oh shit. Shit, it's been 80 days. I apologize. A lot of things going on in my personal life. Moved into a new apartment with my girlfriend, all sorts of shit. I know you guys don't want to hear about that though, so we're gonna jump right into the Dark Souls 2 boss tier list. So, we're gonna have a little disclaimer. As you can see below by the pictures, there are no DLC bosses. Now the reason for that is I actually haven't gotten around to doing any of the DLCs, mainly because the areas are pretty horrendous, notoriously shit. So the only two DLC bosses I've ever actually done are Ava the King's Pet, which I actually thought was pretty good, and I'd probably put in the good tier, mainly just because of the fact that I like the gimmick of it being invisible. You know, you can go to it early and just get fucking slapped, and then you go back later, and it's not so much a problem with the item that you pick up. And the other one being the Burnt Ivory King, who I think is a fantastic boss. However, it is unfortunately ruined by the fact that every single time you die, you have to redo that first portal closing portion of the fight. It was super tedious. If you die even just a handful of times, it's really annoying. And although I like the idea of finding all the knights to help you do that part, it's just god, it was horrible. It needed a bed of chaos quality of, I know saying quality of life and bed of chaos in the same sentence is really weird, but it needed that quality of life where you almost got a checkpoint after you did that, and then if you died, you can just go back and fight the Burnt Ivory King, who by himself would be a great boss, but because of that really bad mechanic, I'd probably put in meh, maybe. So, or maybe average. To begin, his head's cut off here, but we have the last giant. So throughout this series, I've been pretty kind with the introduction bosses, and I think that's going to continue with the last giant. I think he's good. And I'll give my explanation. So he's super easy, don't get me wrong, and at first I would have put him probably in the average tier, but having gone through the game and going into the memories of the dead soldiers and seeing the War of the Giants and kind of being able to piece together that the last giant is actually the giant lord who's down here, and you see his sword is actually impaled within him. It's so cool. It's really mwah. It's nice storytelling. I love it. So for that, I'm gonna give it good. So next up we have the Pursuer. I thought his gimmick of following you throughout the entire game was interesting. It was kind of overkill when you think of Forlorn and the heavy amount of NPCs that you fight throughout the game. So dealing with the Pursuer every now and again was kind of annoying, but the fight itself is pretty damn good. And atop the bridge, the scenery is gorgeous where you fight him, and atop the bridge it gives you that risk reward of, if you guys don't know this, you could parry him and then run to the crossbow and just blast him with the ballista, and it takes out 75%. It's sick. So for that, I'm gonna give it a good. Actually, no, I think this is gonna be a great boss. I think as we fill it up, it'll probably be near the tail end of great boss, but I think it's good there. All right, next up we have our first of many. So Dragon Rider is just it's pinwheel levels of pathetic. You fight him in Hades' beautiful arena. He's kind of generic but cool looking at the same time. He's not great. He's gonna be, I'm gonna keep him in meh for now because I don't think he's trash tier compared to some of these that are in this list. But yeah. Yeah, he's pretty forgettable. Alright, moving on to Ornstein 2.0. The old Dragon Slayer is a pretty damn cool fight. It's a nice little throwback to DS1, one of the greatest fights they've ever put together, they being FromSoft, of course. And I liked it. I thought it was cool. It was a little weird, and it was a little fan servicey, but I think I don't know. I mean, look, I'll take an Ornstein fight all the time, and I found the arena really cool. Again, you're in Hades, so it's one of the most gorgeous areas in the entire series. That might be pushing it, but whatever. So I think Ornstein 2.0 is a pretty great boss. Okay, so because I actually played the Scholar of the First Sin edition of Dark Souls 2, I actually fought Flexile on my way to Lost Sinner. So I didn't really get the experience of fighting them in the boat as a main boss until much later on when I 3-shot them. So for that, I would say my personal experience got sullied a little bit. That being said, I think the design's really cool. I think the moveset is interesting, how they kind of like sway back and forth and they really use like the two weapons like in tandem. It's nice. It flows. It's one of the few fights in this game that I find actually flow. Like a lot of these bosses have like, I don't know, it's a really weird feeling that this game has. The best way to describe it is that DS2 is almost like a Souls-like as opposed to a real like Soulsborne, which is, you know, it's odd, but I found Flexile to be pretty fluid. It was nice. And yeah, I liked Flexile. I think he's a good boss. I'll put Flexile ahead of the last giant probably. Okay, next up we have the Ruined Sentinels. Dear Lord. Okay, if you guys watched my stream, I live streamed my first playthrough of Dark Souls 2. This boss encompassed an entire stream because I, no bullshit, died to it. I couldn't even tell you. 50? 50 might be a good, yeah, 50 times. I'm notoriously bad at gank bosses, and for some reason, there's just something about the Ruined Sentinels that almost broke my spirit. I mean, I managed to beat them on my very last attempt before like fully pulling out my hair live on stream. And so for that, I'd say it was satisfying. Beating them was satisfying. And on my second playthrough, it only took me a couple attempts and I actually, you know, it's fine. It's a matter of just learning their moveset and all that. I think it's a pretty good fight. It's not better than Last Giant. It's not better than Flexile. I do think it deserves to be above average. But again, I'm not a huge fan of these gank fights, mainly just because I'm personally bad at them. But, and the fact that they come back as like an NPC way later on in Drangleic Castle kind of, you know, I always find undercuts the intensity of the prior boss fight. But, whatever, what can you do? So Ruined Sentinels, I'd say is probably a good boss. I think this is fair. Alright, next up we have the Belfry Gargoyles. This is essentially just a reskin. You can fight up to 3 of them at the same time. Again, I actually went back and fought them way later into the game. On my first playthrough, on my second playthrough, when I took them on early, it was kind of just a copy-paste of the infamous fight in DS1. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of reskins. I'm not a big fan of, like, essentially copy-pasting. Ornstein gets a pass. Don't go down in the comments and start shit-talking me, because I put Ornstein in Great Boss. He gets a pass because he's fucking Ornstein. So, Belfry Gargoyles, probably just average. Nothing I can even say about the fight, really. I mean, it's a great fight the first time. Did I need it a second? Probably not. So, okay, here comes the first Pure Lemon's heavily biased opinion. Lost Sinner is not only a god tier boss, but is one of the best fights I've ever had in video game history, period. So I kind of hinted at this in my Dark Souls 1 video when I was shitting on the Bed of Chaos, saying that, you know, keep in mind because the Chaos bug comes back and makes a huge appearance in one of my future videos, because I absolutely love the Lost Center. I love the fact that you can interact with the arena. I always find that really, really fucking cool. And the idea of it impacting the fight so much, you know, giving you light, and also getting the Lost Center, like, 'cause you have to think, this is one of these, like, Slave Knight fights that Dark Souls does so well. Very similar to, like, the Gale fight, where it's just, like, you can just feel the pure, like, desperation in the fight. And it's almost as if, like, they're not even fighting you because they have any malice towards you. I know I said something similar in my previous video, but I just want to reiterate. They're fighting you instead because of, like, ulterior motive. Like, this is someone who was locked inside the Bastille for who knows how many centuries, millennia, and you finally opened up the arena, and they're just trying to get out, and you stand in their way. And it's just, oh, I absolutely love the design of the Lost Center. I ended up actually just, like, cosplaying her for, like, the remainder of my first playthrough, pretty much, until very late into the game when I got some different armor. Her weapon's trash. If you get the boss weapon, just don't. It takes up your own HP. It's pretty bad. But this fight is fantastic. I love the Mano y Mano. Like I said, I love these, like, Slave Knight desperate fights, almost like a Colosseum aesthetic to it. It's so fucking cool. Again, the fact that you can interact with the arena in the way of lighting up the 2 torches, and it's not blatant, it doesn't push it in your face. It's just something that's there, it's subtle, and it makes sense. Oh, so good. Round of applause for Dark Souls 2, because the Lost Sinner is Osiris levels of fantastic. Alright, Executioner's Chariot. This is a puzzle boss that FromSoft did pretty good. I like the idea of going through and killing all the necromancers. You know, it makes sense with like the skeletons, and it kind of harps back to Dark Souls 1 if you really think about it, being in the catacombs with the necromancers. So that's kind of like your first hint. And the fight itself is pretty cool. Again, kind of sullied by the fact that you face it again as an NPC later in Drangleic. But I thought Executioner's Chariot was pretty good. I don't have too much to say. I will put them in good. Probably ahead of Flexile. I think that's a decent spot for them. Alright, in Dark Souls 2, if you had to drink every single time there was a boss that just felt like it shouldn't have even been in the game, you would be blackout before you even reach a quarter of the game. And it all starts with the Skeleton Lords. This thing, it's going to trash tier. It's probably the king of trash tier. It's a lot better than some of the other ones in this list. It's just a bunch of random enemies in a single room. There's literally nothing special about it. It's, I mean, I guess like the aesthetic's cool, and the fact that it's behind the waterfall. Okay, cool. But yeah, I'm not giving these guys the time of day to even talk about them, to be honest. Alright, moving along. If you wanted a boss that was much weaker, much slower, and did way less damage than Vort, Dark Souls 2 got you covered. Covetous Demon. This thing's meh. He takes a couple hits and he's dead. Super weak boss. Very easy to dodge. I mean, his hitbox is a little bit whack when he does like his rollover move. But for the most part, everything's super telegraphed. It's really slow. He's just completely uninteresting pretty much across the board. The one thing that is cool about him, I'm actually going to put him ahead of Dragon Rider. The one thing that is cool about him is if you take a bow and actually shoot down one of the prisoners on the ceiling, he'll go and eat it, which is interesting. You know, it's nothing huge, but yeah, it's cool. Alright, quickly moving on to Mytha, who I thought was a pretty damn good boss also. I'm going to actually put her directly into Great, and then I'll talk about it. So once again, like the Lost Sinner, you were able to interact with her arena. However, the way you do is almost so like obscure. Unless you've seen it before in a video or have heard someone talk about it, you're never gonna find it. So along the way to her arena, there's a specific windmill you can go up to, and if you have your limited use torch out at that point, you could walk up and light the windmill on fire, and for some reason, I guess that stops like the churning of poison, because it drains the poison goop that's in her arena when you eventually fight her, that poisons you and drains your health. It's kind of like a stretch, but it is cool. And again, I always applaud Dark Souls for adding different ways to interact with a boss other than just going in and like slicing the shit out of them. The only negative I'd say about this fight is it was a little cat and mousey, where rather than really like flowing with her, similar to like an Ornstein or a Lost Sinner, or even the Pursuer, it was more of like, yeah, like a cat and mouse where she does something and you have to react. So it felt like a little bit disjointed, but at the same time, everything else I found just really like made up for that. And again, great fight. Mytha, good job. Alright, next up we have one of the crowning jewels of the game, and that is Smelter Demon. So he, right off the bat, is going to go into God tier. And the reason being is because, unlike some of the negatives I was just saying about Mytha, Smelter flows really well. The AoE attacks are sometimes annoying, and depending on how much he spams them, it can kind of sour the experience. But for the most part, he feels like such a natural ending to such a great area in the game, being the Iron Keep, which still doesn't make sense that you take an elevator to go up to a lava zone, but you know, whatever, we're gonna let FromSoft pass on that one, I guess. I just think he's such a good fight. I was getting my ass absolutely handed to me for a good portion of the fight, but the second you kind of get his moves and you get the fact that, like, yeah, he does a little AoE tick damage that you gotta watch out for. You know, if you notice your health bar just slowly shrinking, well, you know why, because he's on fucking fire. But yeah, he's just really well designed, and I've said this in both my previous videos, where Dark Souls kind of has this obsession with these very generic fire demon fights, which we're getting to really soon. But I found Smelter was such a good stray away from what they're comfortable with making. And so I found he was really cool. He was unique. The arena was nothing really to write home about, but I thought he himself was really, really cool. And I wish I knew just a bit more about the lore in this game. It's definitely the one I'm the least familiar with, but I'm sure he has a really fucking cool story for why he looks like this, you know what I mean? Add on top all those things, the fact that his boss armor that you get to wear after is really cool. albeit a little, you know, a little sexy even. And the fact that his boss weapon is really, really fun to use. Smelter is a fantastic boss. Now on the complete opposite side, and I know I just hinted to it, Old Iron King. This thing's meh. I'm gonna put him at the top. He is everything that is kind of wrong with FromSoft's Fire boss experience. It's just so generic. It's so overdone at this point. With Centipede Demon, Ceaseless, it's all just kind of like the same fight in the same aesthetic over and over and over again. And obviously his comparisons with Centipede back in Dark Souls 1 is so ridiculous. It's literally copy paste. I feel like if you told me that Centipede Demon or Old Iron King was like the beta design for one another and they're actually supposed to be like the same boss, I fully would have believed you. The arena's the same, the little trap lava that's behind you the entire time. The fight is really nothing interactive at all. You dodge his very slow fights and slowly whittle down his head. Ugh, not great. Dark Souls, you could do better. Next up we have Princess Nachka, and honestly don't have too much to say about it. I thought it was a cool arena. I thought the side quest with her husband, who gives you the weapon afterwards, is really cool. I found the fight itself to be pretty nice. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like Priscilla in Dark Souls 1, where she is fun, and she is a good fight, but it just kind of doesn't really, I don't know. When I think Dark Souls 2, I don't think of Nachka much. So I'm probably going to have to put her in good, because she's a good fight, but she is quite forgettable. Alright boys, are you ready for a speed round? Royal Rat Authority, this thing is trash. You know why it's trash? Actually not, no, it's bullshit, because it kind of suffers from Capra syndrome, where the second you run in, you just get absolutely ass pounded by these smaller NPCs that don't even deserve to be there. Anyways, Prowling Magus in Congregation, this thing is, again, just a bunch of NPCs in a room. And then you question, how did they make Deacons of the Deep after in DS3? It's the same boss. And it's so bad. Royal Rat Vanguard, it's all three of these are the same thing. They're just different enemies. It's all trash across the board. You all get to later because I like you. Dragon Riders. Are you serious? Dark Souls, are we serious? I wish that I should put another category for this boss. This is ridiculous. So yeah, these four, horrible. Him, honestly, if he wasn't in Hades, being one of my favorite areas in the series, he would probably be in trash tier also because he's Pinwheel. You know what? No, he's Pinwheel. Fuck it. Yeah, all these bosses are horrible. Okay, thank God that's over with. I was gonna start getting really heated if I spoke about them for too long. So let's just go straight into the Rodin. I really like him. I think he goes straight into good. Probably King of Good. King of Good for now. The areas leading up to him are some of my least favorite in the series. All the poison, all the darkness. It's just artificial difficulty that doesn't really deserve a place in the game. But I know Dark Souls is obsessed with poison-filled areas and dark areas. So, I mean, I guess it's a given. It's going to happen at some point. But that shouldn't entirely take away from the Rodin, as he is a really good fight. However, he does kind of epitomize what I said earlier in this video of the game feeling more like a Souls-like. Because I found his motion and his moveset to be just like a little slow, a little off-tempo from the Dark Souls norm, which I found really fucking weird. I feel some kind of way about him, to be honest. I feel some kind of way about that thick-ass boy.
Damn, boy, he's thick, boy! That's a thick ass boy! Damn!
I don't know, man. He's weird. I think he's... No, I love the design too much. I love the design way too much. All the bodies put together, like behind the mask, it's so gruesome, it's so gory, it's so disgusting. And I love that they just kind of went for it and just went all out. I love the boss. The fight, I'm not as crazy about. So I actually think I'm going to put him behind Executioners. But no, I like the Rodin quite a bit. Fredja, the big spoder boy. I gotta be honest, when I was going through this video and I was grabbing the pictures for all the bosses to put into the tier thing, I completely forgot about Fredja. Freya? Fredja? Who knows? I don't know. I thought the fight was okay. I think at this point I was kind of obsessed with using the Grand Lance quite a bit. and it kind of bullshitted my way through a couple of these fights. Fredja, unfortunately, was one of those. And so ever since, I've been like forcing myself to use some like weaker weapons. But the main positives I can give Fredja is the arena. Really, really cool. All of their like aesthetic bonus marks are pretty much everything I gave to Quelaag in the first video. And so yeah, I think Fredja was, I probably put him over the last giant. Again, I just kind of like Nachka. It's just something that I remember them being good, but I just wasn't blown away, you know? But now, if we're talking about being blown away, ooh, Looking Glass Knight is god tier. As I've said over and over again, not a huge fan of the gankiness, but I found this was kind of like a cool way that they tied it in with the NPCs just coming from the shield. And it's just kind of like this like vortex, almost like kind of like the portraits for Ariamis or Ariandel in the previous games. I feel like it almost has like a similar technology to that. Yeah, this is a top tier fight. I love the arena. The fight flows. It's kind of, this is going to be a weird comparison, but I feel as though this fight is what Dragon Slayer armor in BS3 should have been. It's like this grandiose knight fight that just, it's good. Again, probably not as good as Smelter or Best Bay Lost Sinner, but I think, yeah, Looking Glass is fantastic, and I doubt many of you guys are going to disagree with that. Next up, we have Dark Lurker, and if I'm being honest, I never fought them. They're extremely optional. You just about have to complete a covenant to even be able to fight them, and so I actually want to hear from you guys down below in the comments if you've made it this far in the video. Say, I made it, and then give me your opinion on Dark Lurker. I'm very, very curious where they, I don't know, would go. So for now, I'm going to put them in average just because I can't really put them one way or the other. Maybe they're bullshit. Maybe they're the best fight of all time. Who knows? Let me hear. Alright, next up, we have another pure lemon bias, baby. Demon of Song is such a good fight. It almost has this weird Disney Pixar main antagonist of like a children's movie vibe going, you know? Like almost like a Toy Story thing. You know, am I the only one who thinks that? Anyways, I thought Demon of Song was a fantastic design. I feel like there's not only lore in Dark Souls about it, of course there is, but I feel like there's like human folklore that talks something about like a frog that it's almost like a siren. Because I remember in the arena leading up to Demon of Song, you just hear the like, you know, apologies for my singing voice, but you know, like the humming that it would do, and it was so soothing, and it was like a siren. It almost works as a siren because you're unintentionally being called in by the song and going towards them, almost to your own doom. And so for that, like working its aesthetic into the arena that precedes it, and then again into the fight itself, fantastic. The fight itself is pretty good, nothing super memorable. It's nothing like Lost Sinner or Smelter or even Looking Glass, so I think that will exclude it from the god tier boss. But I love Demon of Song, and I think they deserve a pretty strong spot as the kings of great boss. Alright, next up we have Velstadt, and honestly, I found, especially with like the proximity of fighting Looking Glass and Velstadt just kind of felt like a copy-paste, but not as good. Now again, it is one of these like mono-y-mono knight fights that I absolutely adore. So honestly, similar to like Nachka and Freya, I don't really have too much to say about Velstadt, except for the fact that the fight itself is excellent, albeit not as great as Looking Glass. Like I said, you know, the aesthetic is very good. I don't know, I didn't take too much away from Velstadt, so I think I'll put him at the king of good. And if you want to make an argument that he's in the great boss tier, I would agree with you. It's just for some reason they didn't sit that well with me, so I'm gonna put them as the king of good. Alright, so as I said with the last giant, the Giant Lord is really, really cool, and it made me appreciate these two fights so much. It was a really interesting way of having the player experience the timeline of Dark Souls in a way outside of, you know, just like the item descriptions and some of the lore that the characters speak on. It's similar to fighting Eodex Gundyr. You know what? It's actually exactly, it just dawned on me, it's exactly like fighting Eodex Gundyr in Dark Souls 3 as the introduction boss, who is really cool but nothing that great, and you kind of see like what became of this legendary warrior. And then later in the game, you get to travel back in time to fight Champion Gundyr, and you get to see what they actually were in their prime. The Giant Lord is exactly like that. And being able to experience the game in like the 2 different eras is so cool. It lets you get so much more connected to the fights of the game. And so yeah, no, I love, you know what? I just talked myself into putting the Giant Lord ahead of Ornstein. Wow. Mwah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love these bosses. All right, next up we have King Vendrick, who is actually an interesting boss. I really like the idea of Dark Souls giving us this, like, rather than the royalty always being these, you know, like supreme, powerful beings, seeing Vendrick so like broken down and hollow, it shows that no one in the game is immune to the hollowing. And so I actually really like the theme and like the aesthetic of the fight. And honestly, near the end of the fight, you almost feel bad for Vendrick. That being said, he's no slouch of a fight. However, he's extremely cheesable. If you just stick on his left side, you don't even need to roll. You just have to keep orb walking and you'll always dodge his attacks. So that kind of sours the fight. I like the idea of making him weaker by means of like the lore. I just wish the fight didn't end up being so like one note. So Vendrick, I would say, is good. He's definitely below, I think he's the base of good. Alright, next up we have Guardian Dragon. This is just kind of like a generic dragon fight. Really not much to say about this. I think Guardian Dragon is everything the average tier stands for. And now continuing on with the dragon theme, Ancient Dragon is Dark Souls' go-to dragon boss that's just gonna kick you in the teeth over and over and over again. Calamite, Midir, and Ancient Dragon are so brutal. Yeah, Ancient Dragon is a pain in the ass. When you see that thing flying up into the air and you know the fire's coming, just, I don't even know, like brace for impact, you know, accept death, write some letters to loved ones. The aesthetic is gorgeous, and I love the like cult following that it has leading up, and like the idea of having to prove yourself against the larger soldiers so that the smaller ones let you pass. But if they deem you a coward by seeing you try to run away, they'll come after you. I find that really cool. I'm not a huge fan of difficulty for difficulty's sake. That's why I didn't rank Midir and Calamite all that high. And I think Ancient Dragon's gonna follow suit. He's kind of like Velstadt, where if you want to put him higher, I fully respect that and I completely understand. But for me personally, I'm probably gonna fit him somewhere in the good, maybe right before Last Giant. Alright, next up we have Throne Defender and Throne Watcher. Really cool fight. I love the fact that you can summon all the NPCs from throughout the game and just have like a complete war. It's really cool. I think it's a little gimmicky, and I don't think this is anyone's favorite fight, so I'm probably just gonna put them in good. So I kind of love Nashandra's lore of her kind of like working in the shadows behind Vendrick. Everyone's seeing Vendrick as like the true power of Drangleic. When little did they all know Nashandra was just working her way in like a snake. She was just acquiring power here and there and finally just went for it. I love the lore. I also quite like the fight. However, it didn't take me as many attempts even on my first playthrough as I would have liked. I know that sounds weird, like why would you want to die to a boss? And I don't know, it just kind of builds up the hype. Anyway, so I'm glad that she's not actually the final boss of the game and that my boy Aldia is, because yeah, the fight's alright. For what can potentially be, if you turn down the Throne of Wand and just leave the arena, she can be the final boss. I find that kind of unsatisfying. I don't know. I don't want to leave you guys hanging or anything, but I just kind of don't have too much to say about Nashandra. I remember when I first finished her, I kind of felt like, okay, you know, like this is it. And so I'm going to put her in good as well. Good is really just filling up. Definitely behind Vendrick, but probably above Defender and Watcher. Yeah, could have been better. Could have been better. Alright, finally we have Aldia, the older brother to Vendrick. Now Aldia is one of the few bosses in the game that I actually really know the lore about. He is Vendrick's eldest brother, who was completely obsessed, almost in a similar way Osiris was with the Dragonborn. Aldia was obsessed with learning the knowledge of the undead curse and his wishes to revert the fate of humanity. Now, similar to Osiris, all of his experiments and studies led him to getting more and more disfigured and malformed, becoming what we see today. Just a head and a shoulder formed of fire and dying branches, that almost ironically laughs in the face of his research and makes him even less human than what he strives to make everyone else. Now, while Aldia's fight itself isn't fantastic, his lore and his dialogue throughout the game definitely are god tier. And so I think he's going to get an honorary placement here. While I don't think, like I said, he matches up with something like Looking Glass, Smelter, and Lost Center, I find his motives and how they almost match the players really, really interesting. And so I'm very, very pleased to call Aldia the proper final boss of this game. Alright, that's it guys. Sorry for the long wait. I promise the next video will come out sooner. And if you're new here, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more. Like I said, I swear the next video is coming out sooner. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.